Well, to pick up on that and take it, so what role does the average individual citizen have in either being part of the loyal opposition or allowing the loyal opposition to operate?
I think the average citizen should take part in the government, and in being a part of the opposition, if they do feel opposed to the government in power, they should either vote their elected officials out of office if they disagree, or they should become involved and informed. An example would be the Tea Party movement, which has been stirring up many individual citizens who have been opposed to this current administration.
And the people can almost could be considered the ultimate loyal opposition, because they are given the final say on all matters regarding to politics. Republicans or Democrats, it is the people that determines. It is us. We can go to the polls and we can fundamentally change government every 2 years, or every 4 years, or every 6 years, depending on which branch needs reforming. And it is that power. Power lies with the people. It does not lie with the loyal opposition. The loyal opposition only works between elections.
How do you define the dividing line between loyal opposition and obstructionism?
I believe that there is not a straight line between loyal opposition and obstructionism. I think that the two can overlap. I think that, for example, inside the Senate with the use of the filibuster, that this is an obstructionist tactic, but is also used by the loyal opposition to check the majority party. For example, in 2009, there was an unemployment bill presented to the Senate, and Republican senators such as John Kale kept continually put senatorial holds on this bill, and it took a month until the bill was finally voted on. But when it was voted on, the vote was 98-0. There was a unanimous need for this bill, and so I believe that this is obstructionism, but is also a legitimate use of the loyal opposition.
I'd agree with my colleague that they aren't mutually exclusive. An example of this would be when Thomas Jefferson put together the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution to nullify the Alien Sedition Acts put together by President John Adams, because he was benefiting the general good of the people, because these Alien Sedition Acts were so unconstitutional by saying that, by limiting freedom of press and freedom of speech.
To present an opposing argument to my colleague Mr. Camlet's, his point, when the Vice President did
Finish that sentence.
When he did enact these or create these Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, it could be argued that he was obstructing the government that just made this decision to have the legislation which was opposed.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have just told you what I heard was already so brilliant you didn't need to finish. Well, we want to give you some feedback, not because there will be another contest tomorrow, but because you're going forward as productive citizens. And I think I can speak for the committee or the panel here saying we're very pleased with that, because you demonstrated a high level of knowledge that will be a prerequisite for making intelligent decisions. Thought you did a good job with the initial presentation, presented the interesting argument that was very nuanced, the idea that these aren't mutually exclusive, that they do blend together, gives you some wiggle room, and you, of course, dealt with that, I thought, fairly well. You did a good job of pulling in some of the topics, such as separation of powers. I was, of course, shocked to learn that my current state in which I live, South Carolina, had been disloyal, and let me assure you there's some people trying to continue that tradition. But a good range, talking about the Tea Party. I wish we'd had more time to talk about that and tease out some of the nuances there, the civil rights movement, PACs, things of that nature, references to the Federalist Papers, just any number of things as I was making notes that I thought showed that you had really engaged this question well, thought about it, understood how it interrelated, and just did a very good job with this presentation. So you've once again represented the state of Colorado extremely well.
Yeah, I want to echo what my colleague has said. I think it's a very interesting idea that I'm going to think more about as I go forward, that obstructionism is sometimes a legal or a reasonable tactic of the loyal opposition. I think we could talk all day about that, and we only have a short time. But I wonder, you know, when is that right? I mean, it must be only in the extreme cases that you could employ obstruction and still be within the loyal opposition. And I think you at the end there gave a good example of when obstruction is not a legitimate tactic of the loyal opposition. So I appreciated getting some clarification on that. I also thought it was very interesting. You clearly examined and mined the Constitution for good examples of how, even though the framers didn't provide for political parties, they certainly understood that there was a role to be played by a loyal opposition, and built into the Constitution some features to make sure that the loyal opposition would have a say. I'm going to think even more hard about whether impeachment is one of those, but it's a very provocative idea, and I think that you withstood our questioning on that with great poise. So I echo what my colleague said. I'm feeling very optimistic for Colorado and for America to know that you'll be picking up the mantle as citizens and helping shape these questions as the next couple hundred years of our country's history unfolds. So.
I don't have a lot to add. I agree with my colleagues, but I'm going to make one other comment, and that is, I think you demonstrated a good understanding, a flexible understanding too. I think you were good at, especially trying to zone in on what the question was about. You thought it was a little bit vague. Sometimes we ask vague questions in order to allow you to define and structure your answers. But I thought that was good. And most of the time, you weren't just piggybacking, you each added something extra, not just another example or a repetition of a concept, which is also very effective presentation. Good luck to you. Now you can breathe.